in a greater, deeper sense, that is what we're doing here, even though it does seem kind of silly, and it is silly, and I do think it's funny. A lot of this stuff is funny because it's ridiculous. Like, OCD has some ridiculous things to say, and some of the things that you have to do for exposures are ridiculous because of that. But at the same time, if I dig deeper and think about like the real obsessions that come up from these, they're pretty dark and deep. If you're interested in this, make sure to leave a like and some comments down below. I'm interested to hear what you're thinking. I have like a dog hair on my nose. That's a really weird way to start a video. If you're wondering why I'm wearing the gayest pajama pants possible and the Mars hoodie, it's because we're doing something very different. I've never done anything like this before. I don't know how to feel about this right now, but I decided to get into comfy clothes because today I'm doing exposure therapy in front of the camera, which is a little bit weird. Grab a cup of tea or some water or coffee or something and a snack, because I don't know how long this is gonna take, but you're helping me to hold myself accountable for part of what I'm doing for therapy. I will explain everything in a minute. Here's the thing. So, I feel really weird because this is a vulnerable experience, but the reason why I wanted to do this isn't to be like, oh haha, like this is not a big deal. Exposure and response prevention is what this type of therapy is called. It's extremely hard work, I'm not going to deny that. But it is absolutely worth it, and I've already seen changes in my life because of it. The reason why I wanted to film this was because I used to think that exposure therapy was only traumatizing and that it was some horrible, like, scary thing. That is why I didn't get treated or diagnosed with OCD until I was almost 27 years old. Who knows how long I've had it? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Because I feel like the more I learn about it, the more I'm like, yeah, this is how my brain has functioned my entire life. That's a lot of suffering. I didn't mean to say it like that. That's a lot of suffering that maybe, you know, could have been prevented if I knew that exposure therapy was what it was and not what I thought it was by how it was shown in movies. I'm not a therapist, I'm just here to tell you my experience, and you're going to sit with me and watch one of my exposures that I think is entertaining for everybody else. And for me, it is uncomfortable because that is the purpose, but not like... Okay, so let me just backtrack a little bit. I sought out a diagnosis when I realized that my functioning was maybe not as, like... Hang on, it's funny. It's funny to me because I have a dark sense of humor, but it was not as optimal as I would have liked it to have been, because I basically couldn't get through the day. I haven't gone really outside because of COVID, but before that I hadn't really either because of various different reasons. So with physical health conditions, I thought a lot of things that I was afraid of, as in had obsessions about, were things that made sense. But the thing about OCD is that, like, yeah, sometimes it doesn't defy logic, but a lot of times it's rooted in trauma, and I didn't really know. I didn't know the level to which that it could affect me in every single thing that I was thinking of. So after getting diagnosed, I already knew I had PTSD, but I got an official diagnosis for it and a whole bunch of other things. I realized the phobia that I had my entire life was actually OCD. I realized that all these things that I thought that would give me a lot of anxiety was actually OCD. I could go on forever, but it got to the point where earlier this month, I was like, I don't have a thought that is not OCD ridden. Everything I do and think about centers around OCD. So, like, it's like, if you have OCD, if your symptoms persist for more than, I think it's an hour, I could be wrong, I'm gonna leave that in here as a mini exposure because I'm terrified of giving misinformation. But all of the things that I have been doing, I realized I did all day. Literally all day. And it was things that even mentally I didn't realize were compulsions. And I had a friend ask me what the difference is between anxiety and OCD. And I learned a lot about that recently, but again, I'm not a mental health professional. All that I can say is that I know from what I've been told the difference is if the obsession is like the anxiety portion of it, OCD makes you feel like you are either obligated or responsible or have to, for some whatever reason, figure out what to do about it. It has to have some type of way for you to either fix it or absolve yourself of guilt, or that you have to avoid it because if you don't, it's gonna come true or like something terrible is gonna happen. That is the best way I can explain it from experience. I'm gonna run out of I need to clear the camera. So who knows how long this is gonna take. Alright, now I have 2 hours of recording time, which I really hope that I will not need. I'm just kidding, I'm not gonna take that long. I hope. So I can share more with you about like what I'm learning about myself, but I literally feel like I told my therapist about this. I was like, I literally feel like an infant. So I'm just gonna share my experience rather than like actual information about OCD. What I do know for sure is that the best treatment, as in like working with a therapist that does not revolve around medicine, is exposure therapy. And it's called exposure and response prevention. What I'm going to be doing in front of you today is doing an exposure that I planned out with my therapist. I do not totally recommend just doing this on your own because it's much better to have feedback from someone else. So when I expose myself to something that I have an obsession or a fear or anxiety or something around, it's basically categorized as an obsession. I'm doing it purposefully so that I can focus on response prevention, and so that's basically doing whatever I can to resist compulsions or rituals around that obsession. One of my subtypes of OCD is harm OCD. Basically, I'm terrified that something I'm going to do or say or think is going to harm somebody in some way. And my therapist always says that like the people that she works with who have harm OCD are always the people who are like who are least likely to do that because you're so terrified of it, and OCD attacks what you care about. And it's true because I really do care about people. I'm not one of those people who's like,
I hate everybody, I hate people, I hate being around people.
That's not me. I mean, I do like and am fine with being alone, but I have always liked people and I want to believe in them even though I've had PTSD and things from losing trust in people. I feel like in general I want to be close to people. I want to trust people. I do not want to hurt people. It terrifies me. So that goes from a huge scale. So what I'm doing right now is working on exposures that are in a certain level, because with my therapist I made a hierarchy of things that I'm terrified of. How we're going to expose me to those things in incremental steps, because we're not going to jump just to the first one. My therapist isn't also going to put me into danger and having me do things that are literally unsafe. So we're taking my compromised immune system into account. We're taking my other like PTSD and trauma into account. That's why it's something that's really important to get someone else's feedback and perspective on, like as a mental health professional as you're doing it. This one in particular only causes a mid-range type of distress for me, and that's about a good range, because we don't want it to be so low that it's like, this isn't that bad, like I can resist compulsions without being super uncomfortable or like really that uncomfortable at all. But we also don't want to go on the other end and do something at the top of the hierarchy that I feel like I'm going to die if I don't do compulsions from. So what we're doing today that I think you will find entertaining is commenting on people's posts with purposeful spelling mistakes. That might not seem like a big deal, but part of what I've noticed with OCD for me is that I'm very worried I am going to offend somebody. Like they're gonna think that I'm making fun of them, or that I am doing something hurtful to them or triggering. I've always been horrified of triggering people, and like I'll rewatch my videos or refilm my videos. Not doing that anymore. Things like that, which makes a lot of sense looking back. I had all of these videos that I filmed for YouTube and never posted them. Yeah. Sorry. While I'm doing this, like, I'm going to try to be narrating to you. I'm going to screen record my phone. And again, the purpose is not that I'm trying to bother any of these people. I'm going to try to find artists that I really like. I'll start with this one and show you how it's done. So this person makes really cute, like, resin, I think? Yeah, resin charms, and they, like, paint on it. What I'm gonna do, for example, is comment and be, well, let me think of a comment. So if I'm trying to say like, they're so cute, I'm going to write, they're so cute. And I'm gonna post that. So like, let me tell you, the first thing that I think when I see this is that someone's gonna look at my profile. First of all, people are gonna laugh at me and it's gonna be embarrassing. They're gonna come after me and make fun of me. Because I guess I'm also like a little worried about that. That is also part of harm OCD, being harmed or harming others. So that is one of my thoughts. I am just going to sit with that and be uncomfortable with that. I'm also concerned because I'm an author. I write novels, and when I start making spelling errors, it could look like and illegitimize all of what I'm working for. That's at least what I'm saying in my head. But let's talk about reality for a second. Part of reality is that you're going to make mistakes. Whether it's autocorrect changing it, or if you're tired, or you just like, I don't know, just had a moment. We all have moments where we make mistakes. And that isn't inevitable. Like, in some point in my life, I'm going to make a mistake. I can't cease to function because of it. That is the purpose of the exposure. So this one, because I talked about all of that through with you, I don't feel as uncomfortable. So what I do purposefully to try to expose myself to the discomfort of it without doing compulsions is to look at it, and I'll think about it, and just whatever thoughts come up, I will handle them without, well, okay, so I'm not trying to handle them. I'm trying to sit with them and just acknowledge that they're there. Some of the compulsions I would usually do would be that I would reread my posts many times. If I ever made a mistake, I'd delete the whole thing, redo all of it, and that includes like rechecking it and rereading it again after typing it over. So you can imagine how many hours of my life this took for something that someone's just gonna glance or scroll past, that is just, you know, it doesn't serve me. So, okay, we're gonna move on to somebody else's post. Another compulsion is distraction, so you will probably notice that because that is one that I'm still having trouble keeping track of. Okay, let me think about what to write here. I also noticed that I started avoiding some of these exposures by typing things that looked like, oh, maybe he just did a spelling error, like I meant to write one thing and then I accidentally missed a letter. No, we're gonna make it intentional today. It's gonna be intentionally embarrassing. Okay. Also, the purpose is not to embarrass myself. It's just to purposefully make an error. Because like I said, in life, you're gonna make errors. This is so beautiful. Wow. Okay, I have to. Uh, this is why I did this. This is why I decided to film it, because it's entertaining, but my level of anxiety right now out of 10 is probably like, because this person knows some of my other artist friends. My chair is tilting more than I imagined. I'm not sure if we're following each other, but I love her artwork. And yeah, I mean, sometimes I guess I'm gonna make mistakes. I commented this. I really, I really did. I typed it and then I sent it. And the other part of the exposure is that I can't delete it, and sometimes people have been replying to it. Oh yeah, it's great. I love that. Okay, so since my anxiety was around a 5, I just have to wait for it to go down to like a 2.5, and I think it's at like a 3. So I just keep sitting with whatever I'm uncomfortable or distressed by until it goes down without doing compulsions. And if I don't do it perfectly, then that's okay, but like part of the practice is redirecting myself of like, oh, you're distracting yourself, or oh, you almost deleted that comment or something, because perfection isn't the goal either. That's part of OCD. Like, I'm never gonna be perfectly typing everything. I'm not gonna know how to spell every single word. That shouldn't like demoralize my entire career and like just make me the worst person on earth. But these are the types of things that OCD tells me. And if I wasn't aware of that, which I wasn't for a long time, I ended up just not talking, not posting, or doing anything. So, okay. My spelling errors. Oh my god. Oh my god, I love her. Okay, let me write. Oh no. I just thought of a bad one. That was OCD, an intrusive thought. I'm not gonna write that because also I'm still writing things that align with my values, which I also liked about exposure and response therapy, because my values are that I want to connect with other people. I want to compliment people and support their artwork, which these comments are doing even with spelling errors. I want to be able to do things without spending so much time on them it's just totally unnecessary. That's the reason why we chose this exposure. Okay, let me think of a comment to write. Let's see. She's the size of a banana. Oh my god. Okay. There was another one where like someone was using a tiny paintbrush, and I wrote, "What type of pen are you using?" So I think I'm gonna write something. Oh my god, she is mango sized. Because it's obviously a banana. Sometimes, you just get confused. Everything's great. Why are my eyes tearing? What does that mean? Does that mean it's like a 6 or something? A 6, level 6 distress. Tears come to your eyes. Okay, I'm gonna call... Okay, yeah, it's a 6. I'm very uncomfortable. I don't know if this person will realize that I'm literally calling a banana a mango. They might just... I mean, she is kind of mango-sized too, but I know what it meant. It's not correct. Part of what I have to do is, if I do have intrusive thoughts, is acknowledge them and run with them, because throughout life, with a brain with OCD, you're going to have intrusive thoughts. And what I found is that acknowledging them really works for me. So just being like, yep, maybe they will think this is the most embarrassing comment ever. Maybe they will think I'm a terrible author who doesn't know how to spell. Which I would never think about another author, by the way. If you misspell something, I would never judge you. This is why we're doing this, is I judge myself. It's gonna take some time. I'm gonna look back the picture. With my comment under it. Okay. Oh yeah. I should have put like she really is mango sized, but we're not aiming for perfection, even on our mistakes. I'm still like at a 4 out of 10 level, and by the way, for the scale I'm using, it is a specific psychological scale, which I will list right here. I just did a distraction compulsion. So what I've noticed when I have that type of thing is that my brain will just phase out. I'll forget everything I'm doing and I think like, oh, I'm just scrolling Instagram. But I caught myself. I'm continuing to engage with the exposure without engaging in compulsions that would normally, like, avoidance is not the answer, basically. It ends up, like, the whole reason I'm doing this is because compulsions in the long run are harmful. They just make the obsession seem stronger because it's telling my brain like, yeah, this is something scary because we had to do something about it. And my brain's like, oh my god, yeah, you're right, this is serious. My nose is running. I'll be right back. Okay, it was from crying about the mango. Everything's good. We're gonna keep going because I feel like I graduated this particular comment. I really like this artist because, well, I mean, normally, do they use they, them, or she, her pronouns? She, her. Normally she uses like paint on different things to make these painted cubes, but then she started doing this bead thing recently and it's cool. I like the rainbow stuff. So something that I would worry about is that I get afraid of asking questions, and this person above my comment is asking questions, so I'm gonna ask a question. Oh. What are those called? Oh no. Oh god. What are those called? This says it right there. It says beat art. Oh yeah, it's great. I accidentally tapped my keyboards. What are they called? Do you know? Sometimes you just gotta ask. Okay. Let me tell you, we're gonna get real here because I'm trying to be open about what I'm thinking so that you know this isn't about just silly comments or just me destroying my career by typing the wrong letter. I feel like a lot of my life I've worried about wasting everybody's time. So if something's a waste of time, I feel like I'm taking up too much time and space. And obviously that's not very nice to think about myself because that means I'm not taking up time and space even when it's important. And sometimes it is important to do that. I think probably from different PTSD things and chronic illness and like gender stuff, I feel like I learned how to make myself very small. In a greater, deeper sense, that is what we're doing here, even though it does seem kind of silly, and it is silly, and I do think it's funny. A lot of this stuff is funny because it's ridiculous. Like OCD has some ridiculous things to say, and some of the things that you have to do for exposures are ridiculous because of that. But at the same time, if I dig deeper and think about like the real obsessions that come up from these, they're pretty dark and deep. Like, it's not just a silly comment, and that's the type of thing that would go through my head every single day. And so by just sitting with that instead of trying to do something about it to either make sure that I'm always a perfect or good person, I'm not hurting anybody even by mistake, because that means that I'm horrible, I'm a monster, I'm doing terrible things. I'm taking up too much space and time and energy and basically letting OCD torture my own life and living for OCD's thoughts, not like what I actually value and care about, then, you know, it does make sense why in the past I've wondered, like, what is the point? Like, why? Like, it makes sense to me why I would feel that way. And I think it is nice to acknowledge that, because I think a lot of people can relate even if you don't have OCD. Well, some people still do compulsions and have obsessions, like anxieties can be similar or the same as certain obsessions. And a lot of people have depression or anxiety. Like, what was it, like 49% of people in the world have a mental health disorder in their lifetime? I'm hoping that by doing this, even if you can't directly relate, you can see that, you know, it's worth it to take up space. Like, that's what you're here for. You're in a body that occupies space, and so am I. Alright, Sabrina Apton Art, I love your work. I'm not gonna say anything else because it will be a compulsion. I don't know if you can see the 50 million thoughts that just went through my head. Okay, I think I'm gonna stop screen recording here. I hope that you enjoyed a little glimpse into what I've been doing. A lot of things are much more serious, but they're they're serious because I'm ready for them. Nothing I've had to do have I felt like, oh, it's like way too much. And if it is, I can tell my therapist. It's not like I'm not actively going out there and traumatizing myself. Like right now, I actually feel good. Like, okay, exposure therapy exhausts you, by the way, if you ever need to do it in some way. It's also treatment for generalized anxiety disorder. But I do feel like it gives me confidence when I get through something, because I see that I can survive things that would normally make me feel stuck or trapped or unmoving and just ceasing to function. So that's kind of a big deal, even if it's just writing a comment. And sometimes it is that simple, and it's going to like help me with other things. Like, I started streaming on Twitch, I started fucking up in these videos a million times, and I should be allowed to make simple mistakes. I need to work on accepting that, and accepting when mistakes do happen without punishing myself for it or doing something about it, because as long as I know what I did wrong, I take responsibility for it, and I focus on what I'm going to do next time to not repeat those mistakes, then, you know, everything else is out of my control. We're all human, and I'm gonna start allowing myself to be human. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that you took something out of it. If anything, thank you today for sitting with me while I did this. This is one of my more minimal exposures. I'm pretty sure I'm going to graduate it soon. And I'm not going to post this video until it's over because I don't want it to absolve me of guilt for these comments. So if these people respond, which they will, and then I'm going to have intrusive thoughts about it all day about if I offended them, and have to take it as it comes without doing compulsions, then, you know, after all that's over, I will post this video. So by that time, I'm sure that my Kickstarter will have ended, because it's 7 days away from completion. So thank you so freaking much. At this point already, it's fully funded. It just depends on how many stretch goals. I can't believe I'm saying that. I can't believe it's funded. So thank you again. I'm gonna keep updating you, and I'll be on Twitch every week. Again, I don't want this to seem like a lot of people think that exposure therapy is always serious, always traumatizing. Eventually, after some certain point, like, things get to be silly. Like, I was doing knife exposures because I'm afraid that I'm, like, even if I'm not gonna go and stab people, which, like, I'm not that type of person, my brain will be like, well, what if? What if your hand slips, you know? Or what if you're washing the dishes and you drop it and it drops on your dog? So then I started just holding a knife around my dog, which I need to do sometimes. I need to be able to cut vegetables and move on with my life without panicking or like doing a bunch of compulsions to absolve myself of guilt or make sure my dog is like 100% safe if there's like an earthquake and I drop the knife and it happens to land on the dog, you know. So not everybody is like that. Everybody would have a different level of what their hierarchy is. I think it just seems so silly to me that eventually by the end of these knife exposures I'm like, you know, I'm just holding a knife around somebody, nothing is happening. Like, I'm not, just because I'm having thoughts like, well, what if this happens, doesn't mean that it's gonna actually happen in reality. And that's something I'm teaching my brain by exposing myself to it directly. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody here, but I can talk about this more in the future. I'm streaming every Tuesday and Thursday on Twitch. It's just twitch.tv/riverkai if you want to watch me work on comics, or we can talk about OCD because I usually draw for a few hours or work for a few hours, so we can talk about all sorts of things. Other than that, these hoodies and hats and this tote bag are available on my Etsy shop still even after the Kickstarter ends next week. For you, it'll probably be over. So especially if you want this round of printing, I'm gonna order some extra copies after the Kickstarter ends, so there will still be a supply of books to grab if you missed it. And there's gonna be plenty of other things I'm making. I'm so excited, so I can't wait to show you them. Yeah, if you liked this video, make sure to like it so that I know you like this type of video. Maybe we can do a different exposure next time, or I can tell you more about my experience with OCD and treatment, if that's something that interests you. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you and posting this very vulnerable video, even though I sort of made it silly. I hope you're having a great week and, you know, take up the space that you need to. I guess that's all I have to say. Bye!